What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JB Sports, back again with another one. Anthony Joshua, former unified heavyweight champion, stops Jake Paul in the 5th round. Jake Paul was dropped multiple times before ultimately getting counted out in the 5th round. Jake Paul had some success early on, man. He was on his bicycle, a la Lance Armstrong, Tour de France. He was on his bicycle for the first 4 rounds. He was using every square inch of that ring, and that was a big ring. That ring reminded me of the ring that Sugar Ray Leonard used for the Marvin Hagler fight. That was a big ring. But he was able to use that to his advantage as he stayed out of harm's way. But you just kind of knew it wasn't going to hold up because he was doing too much moving. You know, a lot of people would say he was running, but what did they expect? They thought he was going to go head up with Anthony Joshua, a guy with power in both hands, a guy that's a seasoned heavyweight, a guy that's bigger than him, taller than him, have a longer reach. You know, just a better overall, better fighter than him, know how to put his punches together. Better selection of punches than Jake Paul has, because, you know, Jake Paul basically be doing what a lot of them technical slick boxers do, man. He be on the outside, bouncing on his feet, you know, pot shot, never really putting punches together. You know, every once in a while he'll throw a couple of shots to the body, as we seen in the Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fight, but he don't put bunches together at all for the most part. You know, it's very, very rare that he does that. You kind of seen it a little bit again in the Chavez Jr. fight, and I thought that was his best performance as far as he actually looked like a professional fighter in that matchup. But this was a whole different situation that he was encountering, taking on Anthony Joshua. Because Anthony Joshua is a guy that he used his size, he used his height, he used his weight, and he used his overall physicality to his advantage versus Jake Paul. Now, Jake Paul was having a little success early on. I know when they had the punch output, you know, I don't think they were giving Jake Paul a lot of credit. He was landing some shots. He was landing a couple of jabs, doubling it up on the jab. He was landing a couple of overhand rights. And he was trying to set that uppercut up. And he barely missed the uppercut at one point. I think if he could have landed the uppercut, he might have got Anthony Joshua's attention. But to me, he was throwing his punches he was throwing them like hoping he would land. He wasn't throwing them punches with no conviction. He was hoping to land. You don't do that as a boxer, man. You got to set up punches and you got to throw with conviction. You got to throw that, you know, like you know you're going to land this punch. I set this punch up, I'm finna land this punch. He was kind of like throwing those punches, I hope I can connect, you know, like a wing and a prayer type of situation. And that's not going to work against a guy of the caliber of Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua did not do a good job of cutting off the ring. I will say that. Early on, he was following Jake Paul around. He wasn't cutting the ring out. He wasn't doubling it up on his jab. He wasn't doing that stab jab to the body to stifle the movement of Jake Paul. He wasn't doing any of those things. He was just following him around. And I think at one point, it looked like he was getting a little frustrated. I don't know, the pressure was getting to him, like Jake Paul was saying before the fight, that the pressure would get to him when we get to round 3, 4, 5, when everybody's expecting this fight to not last past 2 rounds. And I think that was part of Jake Paul's game plan, to move around and then hopefully frustrate AJ and then catch him with something big. Like I said, I can see what Jake Paul was banking on, watching the Daniel Dubois fight and Anthony Joshua's last fight. You know, Anthony Joshua made a cardinal sin in the sport of boxing, going straight back. You either go back right or go back left. You never go straight back. He went straight back, and Daniel Dubois caught him with a big shot. He never recovered from that shot. I think Jake Paul was trying to set that up when he was jabbing. He was trying to back Anthony Joshua up, but Anthony Joshua did a good job of holding his ground. Anthony Joshua probably knew that what Jake Paul's game plan was, to probably catch him with the same shot as Daniel Dubois. And Anthony Joshua did a good job of, when he did jab, he kind of stood his ground. He didn't immediately go back. He kind of stood his ground, and that pretty much, he was so much bigger and stronger than Jake Paul. It was kind of crazy because Jake Paul, you know, when you jab somebody, you come with a double jab, you kind of back them up. But he's like he was jabbing to a brick wall because he couldn't move AJ back off the double jab. So that was frustrating, I know, to Jake Paul. And he just basically did a good job, but he just really didn't have a plan B. He did a lot of running around, but at certain times you got to stand your ground. And I think he started to do that a little bit, but when he did that, the fight was basically over. Once he started trying to stand his ground and stop all that movement, the fight was over. You know, AJ started hitting them with big shots. He was hitting them everywhere too. Hitting them in the back, hitting them in the arms, hitting them with head shots. He hit him with a beautiful uppercut, and he hit him with an overhand right. And Jake Paul took that punch very well. Jake Paul showed to have a real good chin, but he's basically is a cruiserweight fighting a heavyweight, and it showed out last night. So with all that being said, credit goes to AJ for taking care of business. Hopefully we get the fight that everybody been looking for, well, at least people over there in the UK been waiting for, and that is Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. They talking about both guys might have a fight in the first quarter of 2026, interim fight, and then they have a big mega fight in September. Probably around about the same time as Mexican Independence Day. I was assuming they probably have one of those double headers where they have that big fight over there in the UK, and then Saturday night, Canelo Alvarez will have his fight that night against, you know, a top tier opponent, I would assume. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires, but basically that's what happened, man. Jake Paul, he lasted longer than a lot of other people thought he would, and a lot of people thought this fight was fixed. It was not fixed. You got people putting money on this fight. There's no way they're going to fix a fight, because if it ever get found out, that's a big-ass lawsuit by all the people that put their money on the fight. And then I think you can go to jail for that. That's like get people locked up, man. You can't be doing that. You know, that's stealing money. You can't be doing. You got people putting money on this fight. You can't be doing that. That's what I think that's a federal crime, if I'm not mistaken. You looking at time. Ain't no when you go to county jail or something like that, city jail, where you might get out on good behavior, or you might say 5 years, you get out 2.5 years. When you do that fed time, 10 years is 10 years. You ain't getting out a day earlier. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. But AJ stops Jake in round 5 to push his record to 29 wins, 4 losses, and 26 KOs. He has a hell of a KO ratio, man. We talk about the great knockout artists in the heavyweight division. You know, the names come up like Mike Tyson, Ernie Shavers, George Foreman, and here recently, Deontay Wilder. But you definitely got to put Anthony Joshua up there with those guys. He kind of got overshadowed by Wilder in that regard, as far as being that knockout artist, the guy that got all the credit for knocking guys out. It seemed like Wilder got all the credit, and people kind of slept on AJ. Even though AJ would have came along in another era, he'd have been looked at as the knockout artist of this generation when you talk about the heavyweight division. But there ain't nothing wrong with being the second best knockout artist behind Deontay Wilder. Ain't nothing wrong with that, because Wilder will go down as one of the great knockout artists of all time in my Muhammad Ali voice. So let me know your thoughts about this matchup. You like this fight? I thought it was very, very intriguing. It wasn't a lot of action, but it was just, you was like sitting on the edge of your seat, just like, damn, is Jake going to be able to pull this off? He's doing a lot of running early on. Is he going to start sitting down on this shots, or will he frustrate AJ and walk AJ into a shot? It was all that going through your mind, but at the end of the day, when he couldn't do all the movement that he did early on, he had to kind of slow down the movement. That's basically when the fight was over, and AJ started to land big shots and ultimately ended up stopping Jake Paul. So let me know your thoughts about this matchup, man, and who you think that Anthony Joshua should fight at the beginning of next year. I wouldn't mind seeing him take on a Zhang or somebody like that, or even a Big Baby Anderson or somebody on that level as a good preparation to get fight a Tyson Fury. I don't want to see him fight some guy we never heard of. Like that guy that he was supposed to fight before the Jake Paul fight came to fruition. That guy nobody never heard of. That was going to be an 8-round fight. That was going to be on the undercard of an innerweight fight, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want that level of opponent. I want him to fight at least a top 10, top 15, top of heavyweight. Like I said, a Zhang, Big Baby Anderson, even a Big Baby Miller. Somebody on that level. You get a win over them, and then that'll get people like myself more excited about the matchup between you and Fury. Fury get a fight at the first quarter of 2026, fighting a guy on the same level I just mentioned for AJ. You know, Big Baby Anderson, Big Baby Miller, Zhang, somebody on that level, get a win, and then let's get the big matchup that the UK fans have been wanting for a long time. That is AJ versus Fury. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and follow me on Facebook, Gerard Briscoe. Follow me on TikTok at JB Sports. New media, follow me on Twitch at Briscoe, MA77071. Follow me on Instagram at JB Sports 9707. And follow me on my YouTube channels. That's plural, not singular, at JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend, 9656, and at JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend, 8000. And like, share, and subscribe to JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend. And I holla.